Well, new developments today on a huge oil deal that could have a major impact on what we are paying for energy in the future. At issue, a $7 billion oil pipeline proposal stretching from Canada to Texas, traveling through 6 states. Environmentalists are up in arms, saying this pipeline spells disaster for America's farm country. But backers point out that this thing could supply up to 40% of America's future oil needs and will create tens of thousands of jobs, not to mention the billions of dollars that it will inject into the U.S. economy. So will it be thumbs up or down for this pipeline, which the State Department is considering right now? Joining me live, Nebraska State Senator Tony Fulton, who is against this thing, and Alex Pourbaix, president of TransCanada, U.S. Energy and Pipeline Division, Toronto, Canada. That's the company behind this. Gentlemen, thank you both so much for being here. I appreciate it. Senator Fulton, let me start with you. It sounds great. I mean, they're talking about how this thing's going to inject $20 billion into our economy. Taxpayers don't have to, fund it. It's not a stimulus that we have to pay for. It's going to be a, company that does it. 20,000 construction jobs, millions of dollars in taxes to the communities it crosses. What's the problem?
Well, I'm pleased to be with you, first of all. Thank you, Megan. All of the reasons that are given in favor of this pipeline, I want to be clear, I'm in support of the pipeline. It brings jobs, it's going to bring revenue into our great state, lessens our dependence on foreign oil. Those are all good arguments. It's the route. We're concerned about the route. We would like to have this pipeline. We're grateful for this pipeline. But the route causes us some concern. It's going to go through our sandhills and through our Ogallala aquifer. The Sandhills is one of a kind in this world.
So what are you worried? You're worried that the pipeline is going to leak and cause environmental damage?
Well, the pipeline is going to leak. That's what happens. I mean, there's a pipeline running through Nebraska right now, and it's leaked a number of times already. Same company running it. Now, the question is, how much is it going to leak? I'm not one of those folks who believe that the entire aquifer is at risk here, but there is some risk. And my question is, if we already have a pipeline running through the eastern third of Nebraska, why not utilize that existing route? Why do we have to introduce new risk? And that really is the concern that a lot of Nebraskans have. Okay.
Mr. Pourbaix, let me take it to you, because this aquifer that the senator refers to spans a large area of the Great Plains. It provides water to 8 states. If your pipeline leaks into that aquifer, contaminating water supply in 8 states, people are going to be rethinking all those great things we just ticked off.
Yes, and I think it's really important that we continue to look at the science of this issue rather than the emotions. As you mentioned, the aquifer, the Ogallala aquifer, underlies massive portions of the Great Plains states, and in fact overlays some of the most productive oil deposits in the United States. Since 1950, over 25 billion barrels of oil have been safely produced through the aquifer and transported through the aquifer. In fact, today alone, 2 million barrels a day of oil are transported through this aquifer. This is not new technology. This is going to be a safe pipeline. As the State Department said in their environmental impact statement, this will be the safest crude oil pipeline ever built. There is not a concern about contaminating large portions of the aquifer.
All right, before I go back to the senator, let me ask you about that State Department, because they've sort of given a conditional approval, but the final decision is yet to come. They didn't see any sort of big problems, big red flags on it. But now, Mr. Pourbaix, they've come out and said that the Natural Resources Defense Council says, quote, "It is utterly beyond me how the administration can claim the pipeline will have no significant impacts on the environment if they haven't bothered to do in-depth studies around the issues of contention." And they say that there's some cozy relationship between the State Department and a former Hillary Clinton campaign aide who's working as a lobbyist for your organization. I'll give you the chance to respond, sir.
Right off the bat, to suggest there's any kind of cozy relationship between TransCanada or any of our employees in the State Department is a ridiculous statement to be made. The employee in question was actually hired well in advance of this debate with respect to the routing of the pipeline. We, in fact, hired him to assist us with our New York power generation business. So any suggestion that this gentleman was hired to project influence with the White House is just a completely unsupported statement.
Senator Fulton, let me take it to you, because the State Department did come out and say there's unlikely to be any serious environmental problems here, that your concerns are essentially overblown, and came out and, I mean, that when they talk about the numbers, look at this country. I mean, that one of the big talking points from both sides of the aisle is we need to reduce our dependence on foreign oil, from countries that don't like the United States. Now we're talking about perhaps 100 billion barrels of oil that we could get from Canada, one of our closest allies, enough to meet 40% of U.S. oil imports. And, the guy on screen right, who runs this TransCanada, part of it, is telling us you don't have to worry about the environmental aspects, that they've looked into it. There isn't a significant risk. What do you say to him, sir?
Well, again, I want to be clear. I am grateful for this project. I mean, these are great prospects, but it's probably not entirely accurate to say that it is TransCanada who is making the decision about how this affects the environment. As it stands through the process, as I understand it, it's the State Department.
But they're the ones who came out and said that there are unlikely to be any serious environmental problems.
Indeed, that has been said. But these facts are stubborn things. There is a TransCanada pipeline running through Nebraska right now. It's been operational for about a year. And as I understand it, there have already been about a dozen leaks. Now, not catastrophic leaks, certainly leaks where there are moving parts, where the pumps are what leaked, as I understand it. But this is the State Department making a decision here in Nebraska. And in a sense, I feel sorry for TransCanada. Megan, part of my background, I was a mechanical engineer and I worked in the energy sector. And TransCanada, from my experience, has a good reputation. They have a product. There's demand for that product. Their pipeline moves a product. They're trying to move forward in a free market, and I respect that. They put forward a number of proposals as to where the route ought to go, and as I understand it, it was the State Department that chose this route. Now, that's problematic because there is another route, and if we say the upshot of science yielded this route, then that begs the question, what about the other route?
I got to run, but Mr. Parvey, I'll give you the last word to respond to why you can't pick a different route that would please even your critics.
Well, I think, as the Senator mentioned, he is correct. Through the environmental impact process, there were in fact 8 routes that were looked at, and at the end of the day, the State Department did agree with the route that we're on right now, and in fact took an exhaustive look at 7 other routes, one of which avoided the sandhills entirely, and 6 which reduced the mileage in the sandhills. And they came to the conclusion after an exhaustive analysis that the route that we're on right now did actually impact the least environment.
All right, guys, I got to run. I thank you both. Listen, I appreciate it. I feel like we've vetted the issues pretty well. All the best.